Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. On a Monday, that must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane livestream. James, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine, and how are you?
I am also doing just fine.
Just fine.
No
That's
complaints.
that's
I don't know
good.
what's going on right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, status quo is good, right?
I
I
mean,
mean,
sometimes, that's just what the doctor ordered, right? It's no crazy happiness, but it's no, like, depths of the Grand Canyon either. So,
yeah.
you take your victories where you can get them, and then you move on. So
Cool.
hopefully you're having more peaks than valleys.
Yeah. I mean, it's been fine. I mean, I know we had the Super Bowl yesterday. I don't follow football that much anymore. But I did hang out with family and stuff like that, and watched some games and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, it was fine. I mean, nothing really. It's just typical. I would consider it a typical football kind of weekend, I guess. I mean, nothing too crazy. Just kind of had some good food and good company, and just that was about it for the most part. And on your side, same thing, kind of
Yeah,
you
I
had it
hung
on
out
the
with some
background, I
friends.
guess.
Yeah, we had the game on in the background. Just sat and drank some brews, and it's an interesting it's an interesting thing. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl has been going on for longer than I've been alive, um, and it's just interesting the parties that I go to now versus the parties that I went to when I was younger. And I don't know how to put my fingertips on it, but just the nature of masculinity has changed. I like okay, I mean, this is just sort of a broad example,
Uh huh.
but years ago it would be like, oh, the sports bar, like just the traditional kind of dude bro evening.
Mhm.
And maybe just the circle of people that I'm hanging with is different, but I don't know. But yesterday, at one point, the game is going on in the background, and we're all talking about how fat we feel and how we need to exercise more.
Wow. Wow. I gotta say, on my side, that conversation never came up. We were just
Yeah,
watching the game and saying, "Oh, it's a pretty game." That's about all we. That was the extent of it, though. But yeah, that's pretty.
I mean, like
Wow.
when the halftime show started, it was just like, is Rihanna pregnant? Like,
Oh yeah, we talked about that too. Actually, we
I mean,
we
she
were
is.
talking.
It turns out she is, but I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like that would not be a thing that we would have even noticed 5 years ago, even maybe a little bit more, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
why do I know who Rihanna is? Like, just some, I mean, she's really popular in the pop in R&B circles, but
Yeah.
I don't really care for pop or R&B.
Uh-huh.
And yet, I mean, I know who Rihanna is because everybody knows who Rihanna is, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. It's just weird the way things change, I guess. And I don't know if it's just me or if it's just. I'm sure that in certain places it's still sort of the traditional kind of dude bro evening, but yeah, it's definitely not the way our our evening was yesterday. I mean, it was great. I went on like a 10-minute rant about Star Trek Voyager, so I was happy.
So what season? So are you? Yeah, I know you were starting that up. Are you down? Are you to the last season yet? Or are you still
I'm
kind of?
about a third of the way through season 5, so I have rest of 5, 6, and 7 to go.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So you still got a ways to go.
Yeah. I'd say. I mean, I'm over halfway at this point.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I've still got a ways to go. I mean, and I'm not rushing it. It's good. It's a good show.
Mhm.
And the nice thing about it is, like, even the bad episodes, they're still worth keeping on in the background.
Mhm.
I watched a really good episode today. I am convinced that Janeway is the goat. I mean, she's just I don't know what it is about the writers. I mean, we talked about this briefly, but they are just obsessed with putting her in these no-win situations and forcing her to make these decisions that are like, this really sucks, man. There is no right decision here. But then she makes the call and she sticks to her guns, right? Like she's like, it's my responsibility. I'm going to make this decision, and every once in a while they'll do an episode where she like has a crisis of faith and that kind of stuff, and that's kind of, I think it's interesting. I don't know that they really knew what to do with most of the characters when they started the show. And I mean, you kind of get that. I think most shows only have a vague idea of who their characters are, and then, as the series wanes on and new writers come in and the actors get comfortable with them, then, the characters sort of emerge from that amalgam of effort. But it's interesting. Chakotay, the first officer, they've really, by season 5 they've completely dropped the Native American thing. They hit that really hard in season 1, and woof, man, like it does not age well. I mean, it's season 1 was what, 1997, something like that. Yeah. But it was maybe in 97 it was considered like aware and progressive, or I don't know, to include a Native American character, but it's just sort of it's an amalgam of Native American faiths that are only half understood, and so it actually comes off really tone deaf, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not watching it through the lens of someone who is making the show in 1998. I'm watching it now as
today's
with
today's sensibilities towards media, right?
But the sense I get though is they sort of realize that too, because by about season 2 or 3 they completely, for the most part, drop that aspect of his character, except for on a rare occasion. But what he has become is he's sort of become the role that I think they originally intended for Tuvok, which is Janeway's confidant.
Oh, okay.
And
he's the number one.
Yeah, he's number one, right? But in first season, like Janeway and Tuvok were, and they still are, they're really close friends. But it was, to me, I got the sense they were trying to position Tuvok as Janeway's confidant. And I think that they're like, actually, a Vulcan being a confidant probably isn't going to work very well. And also because Janeway is so hard-edged and she doesn't, she's not driven by her emotions. Chakotay is a much more intuitive, kind of empathic character, and so having that dichotomy works way better than if Tuvok was trying to fill that role. But yeah, I mean, by this point in season 5, they have a pretty strong sense of who their characters are, and it's funny. The only character that still doesn't really, they just don't know what to do with him is Harry Kim, the ensign who never gets a promotion. Like just about every other character in the entire show gets a promotion, and he's an ensign from year 1 to year 7. Like Tom Paris gets demoted and then re-promoted, I think. And Harry Kim is still an ensign. But they just never know what to do with the character, honestly. Like he's the one character who, like, you get a sense he's just kind of a schmo. He's just a workaday schmo who's just happy to be here. So, but it's good. I mean, I really like it. There's some phenomenally good. There's some really phenomenally good sci-fi in it, and I think it has for me it has an advantage over DS9 because DS9 became so serialized in the sort of the second half of the run. They couldn't explore as much in terms of science fiction ideas and concepts because they were bound to the storyline, right? But Voyager staying with sort of a general series arc, but then every episode is relatively episodic. It gives them the freedom to do really fun, interesting things. Harkening back to the days of Next Generation in the original series.
Yeah. Oh.
What are we drawing on today? What are we looking at?
I was gonna say, like, let me see if I can do some random interesting things as we talk about really interesting things in Star Trek. But hopefully this doesn't deter too much going down this rabbit hole of random sketching or something. But let's see here. I will share screen. We're going to work on the Warhog,
Mm-hmm.
and his yell tonight. I think
Okay.
that's what we'll do. So I'll throw this in here. Um, Let me grab some assets and I'll start working on this. I've already built up some of the stuff from previous
Mm-hmm.
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
mean, well,
can
the previous episodes. Yeah, so I'll
Any
use
viewer
some of the
can
same.
check the archives and take a look.
Yeah, and I'll grab some of this stuff so it'll help kind of at least give us a starting point. Um, but yeah, you know, yeah, you and I both kind of talked about Voyager and how I try to avoid watching it because of Janeway. I just can't seem to get into the character.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part of me that wants to eventually. Maybe I'll sit down and watch it, and give it a shot. I just haven't got around to doing it. Mainly, I know it sounds so superficial, but it's because of her voice. I just can't seem to get away from her voice. It's just too. I don't know what the word is. It's too. I guess it's
She's
kind of
got
not
a kind of a
strange.
higher register nasally voice.
Yeah. So I wish there was a way for me to get away from that superficiality of it and just try to watch the show. But I just I've come from this understanding that way back when they were first casting for Voyager, it was supposed to be Linda Hamilton. So in my head, I wanted to have Linda Hamilton in that
Mm.
role. So whenever I'd watch the show, I was like, oh, I wish Linda Hamilton was in this show.
Mm.
And it's not fair to what's the actress's name? Mulgrew?
Kate
Kate Mulgrew?
Mulgrew, yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair to the actress. I just that's kind of where I'm at though. It's just, and so I always have this weird thing of guilt of like I really wish I could watch the show, but I need to just find a way to get over it and just give it a shot. But
Yeah.
with Star Trek now, there's so much stuff out there that now I don't even know. I mean, I still have Picard. I'm still working on Picard, although it sounds to me like you would probably argue that Voyager's a better show than Picard at this
Oh,
point.
I mean, not even. I mean, that's like saying, you know what? It's way more fun to breathe oxygen than nitrogen. Or that's not a fair comparison. Most of our atmosphere is nitrogen. It's way more fun to breathe oxygen than it is krypton or whatever that noble gas is.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I know.
xenon. It's way better to breathe oxygen than it is to breathe xenon. Um, it's not a
So
comparison. Like, it's just not at all a
no, I
comparison.
know, I know. So yeah, but see, the thing is Patrick Stewart to me is reason enough to want to watch the show, even if it's kind of crummy or crappy or whatever. I still want
Mm-hmm.
to watch it. Um, and I know and I think they're gonna wrap everything up by the next season, by season 3 anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some finality to it as well. So that's, I pretty much have just come to the conclusion, yeah, I'll just watch it and just give it a shot because I know it's gonna be done. I don't have to commit to more than to 7 seasons of this show. Whereas Voyager, yeah, it's 7 seasons. It's just
Yeah, it's a
that's a whole.
commitment. I mean, there's no question about it. And the thing about Voyager too is it takes a good, like, I'll be honest, until Seven of Nine shows up, the show is still kind of trying to figure out what it is. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what it was about bringing that character on, but it actually sort of it it grounded the show in a weird way. I don't know, the grounding it is the right word, but for whatever reason, by season 4, like, they finally, like, oh, I know it. We know what this show is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, until Seven of Nine, say whatever you want about the character. I've actually ended up really liking the character. Um, but say what you will about her. After she shows up, they start figuring out, like, what they want the show to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot more hard sci-fi than honestly, like, we're 5 seasons in, and there hasn't been any. There's been very, very few kind of silly episodes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even episodes that you think are starting silly end up taking a dark turn, right? Like, there's no a fistful of datas,
Mm-hmm.
Q has shown up once or twice, but in TNG, Q showed up practically every season, at least once.
Yeah, like he would have
Um,
his
yeah,
annual appearance.
yeah. In general, in as much as Star Trek can be considered hard sci-fi, Voyager is the hardest of the hard sci-fi of the TNG era shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Like, why do you consider that the most hardcore of the sci-fi?
it's
Because
it's just
they
it's just
actually,
like TNG would have silly fun episodes from time to time. Um, and DS9 um, did as well. Like they would have like they had the trials and tribulations. That episode where they go back in time onto onto the Enterprise, the original Enterprise, and they intercut clips from the Trouble with Tribbles.
oh yeah, hmm
Right, it was a great episode. It's a really fun episode, but there's not been any episodes even remotely like that in Voyager, at least through season 5, and so it's a significant way through the show. They have more light-hearted episodes, but they don't really have any. They haven't had any real comedy episodes.
I wonder if so for DS9, it felt to me like that show was pretty serious for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time they started doing the Tribbles episodes stuff like that, I felt like to me that they were trying to do ratings grabs and trying to find ways to get other people to watch it or to come back to the show. But I could be completely. I mean, I'm just making up a theory just on the
Yeah.
fly here as we talk. But when I watched the episode, I enjoyed it. But I felt like, but that episode in particular, it felt like was just a kind of like a eyeball grab to try to get people to, hey, watch our show. It's really good. Please, look, we'll even get Captain Kirk in the show, to show up if you want to watch it. And here's his gimmick of sorts. It is cool. It was a great. I liked the episode too. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite ones too. It really stood out. But whereas Voyager, maybe they just kind of left it kind of floating out there like a derelict ship out in the TV universe that just kind of do its own thing, and they never had to worry about trying to do humor or anything else. Or maybe this, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of that, though? I mean,
It's interesting. I've read interviews with writers on the various shows, and like one of the writers who I think it was actually Brian Fuller. He got cast as a staff writer on Voyager because of a spec that he wrote for DS9.
okay.
And if I'm remembering what he said correctly, and maybe I'm not, but I think the gist is right, is he always thought that Voyager was the better science fiction show, but it seemed like the writers on DS9 were having a hell of a lot more fun.
Huh. Interesting.
Which I think is an interesting way of putting it, right? Because my understanding is the writing room for Voyager was very, very much in line with, we are trying to sort of replicate the formula of the Next Generation. We want to be more along the lines of more of the traditional Star Trek vibe, which it is. I mean, it's very much in line with what you would imagine Star Trek was, especially in the TNG era.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to that end, they ended up taking the franchise a lot more seriously, and DS9 definitely plays pretty fast and loose with things like the Prime Directive, and the Federation is not it's not a war organization. It's a confederacy of peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of play fast and loose with that idea a little bit. Now I like DS9. Don't get me wrong. I like pretty much all of the TNG era shows.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't rewatched. I never finished Enterprise. I only got 2 seasons into it before I kind of burnt out on Star Trek in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I might go back and try watching that show too. We'll see. My memories of it was that it was definitely the weakest of that era, of the
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Braga. What's his face?
Ron Moore.
Not
Roy
Ronald Moore.
Moore.
Ronald Moore was on he I don't think Ronald Moore worked on Voyager at all.
Okay.
Brandon Braga and his other
Oh, that's right. There was always 2 of them, huh?
yeah. Why am I forgetting his name right now? Anyway, I don't know why it matters that I remember
Burnett?
his
Is it
name.
Burnett? Berman?
Rick Berman. Rick Berman. Yeah, that's it.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, um, so yeah, so Voyager was much more going back into the more traditional. Humans are the good guys, and they are a force for good, and we are much more back to that notion of an optimistic future for the human race,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to a certain extent, like Voyager hits it even harder than even the Next Generation, because Voyager's 65,000 light years from Earth, and no one is there like monitoring their behavior, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, they don't have to follow the Prime Directive. They could, you could make a pragmatic argument that fuck the Prime Directive, we just got to get home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, and Janeway is frankly one of the big reasons for it. The fact that they adhere so strictly to the Prime Directive, and to this notion that humans are a peaceful species, right? Will defend themselves, but also aren't instigators, is really cool, because you know TNG, the Enterprise was in the Alpha Quadrant. They could be immediately held accountable. No one is going to hold Voyager accountable. No
But
one
yet
is.
she still tries to.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a fun little. I mean, that's a fun little conundrum for her to deal
yeah,
with.
and so I really dig that aspect of the show, and I don't think
Yeah.
it's a coincidence. They really lean into the fact that Janeway is choosing the way of peace, right? She is
Yeah.
aware that maybe she could have gotten home faster if she took more of a hell or high water approach, more of a Machiavellian, the ends justifies the means sort of approach.
Hmm.
But she chooses not to, and I think that's really cool. I think it's a really cool aspect to the show that really gives it a lot of weight. You know?
Hmm. Hmm. There's also there's a temptation too, because you'd think that as a human you'd want to eventually, give in and
Right.
try to actually say, ah, just whatever, I don't care, no one's gonna catch us anyway, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and in the
yeah.
show, what's that?
I was gonna say that makes her actually more interesting as a Starfleet captain compared to
Yeah.
the other ones, because she has that ongoing temptation to never have to follow it, but yes, she does.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty admirable trait for her to have for a character.
I mean, I think it's also a useful means of, because a huge undercurrent that is ever present, even if they don't address it in every episode, is just the nature of keeping morale up. Right? You're,
Hmm.
less than 200 humans for the most part, trapped in a part of the galaxy that no one has ever been to. Right? Well, I mean, like, no one of your species has ever been to.
Hmm. Hmm.
And your only way home is going to take 65 years to get there. And I mean, that's got to be demoralizing, right?
Yeah.
And so there is just this undercurrent that runs throughout the entire series of how do I keep these people motivated? How do I keep their eyes on the prize?
Hmm.
I don't know. There's really a lot to like about Voyager, and I don't think, if I had been watching it in the '90s. I mean, when did Voyager premiere? Oh, okay. Voyager premiered in '95.
Okay.
So I was I think freshman in high school, 95, 96, 97. No. 95, 96, 97, 98. 96, 97, 98, 99. Yeah, I was in the 8th grade when Voyager premiered. Um,
Wow.
I had to count my age. So it really, it would have, I think probably the reason why I didn't really get into it that much is because it was going to go right over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a more subtle show, frankly, than Next Generation or DS9 were. DS9 had a really clear kind of central conceit. War is started in the galaxy, and TNG had a much more utopian vibe. I mean, because it was, TNG was Roddenberry's baby, and Roddenberry was a true utopianist, right? If that's even a word.
Mm-hmm.
And Voyager is, in a lot of ways, a much more subtle look at the nature of the world of Star Trek. It's a much more nuanced approach, honestly. So I don't know. This was a major point of conversation yesterday when the Super Bowl was on.
Really?
And it was like in the background, and big giant guys are beating the crap out of each other and giving each other's concussions and shortening their lives by 30, 40 years. And while they're doing that and the world is watching and cheering, or at least the United States, I'm sitting in my friend's house drinking beer and talking about the nature of the subtleties of the formula of Star Trek as presented through Voyager.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've lost interest in football too. Like my years of watching it are behind me, but I just still watch the Super Bowl mainly now for family activity, annual family activity or anything. And I know a few players only because of watching for so long years ago, and so they're still in the league. A few of those players, so I know a couple of household names, like Mahomes or Travis Kelce, who won the Super Bowl yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have any. There's no fandom left in me for football anymore. So I just simply watch it for the commercials and then call it good. But for me, the entertainment of my night was playing the rest of God of War Ragnarok and trying to wrap up the game.
Did you get there?
Yeah, but I'm a little bit dragging today because I started playing it around let's say midnight my time, Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get done. And I was at the very end. Like I started the last chapter pretty much. I didn't finish the game until 2:00, 2:30 in the morning, and I was sort of angry because I kind of had a feeling that I shouldn't have started doing the ending chapter that late at night. It wasn't gonna be like a half hour long. It was gonna be. It's like these AAA games. A lot of them kind of have these more drawn out endings now. Where you keep playing, there's multiple versions of a boss, etc. And that's pretty much what happened. And I knew it. I saw the train wreck before it came, and I still put myself in that position to just be tired today and just kind of drag on, yeah. But with all that said, it's funny. Like it's kind of weird. I mean, this is for another conversation, but I found myself enjoying playing God of War Ragnarok over watching a lot of like television shows now. So I'd rather be doing that and watching that story unfold than watching some television shows unfold just in the current state right now. Like I haven't watched, for example, there's some shows like I want to watch, like Alice in Borderland season 2. I want to watch that. There's some that are out there, but I feel like some video games have have more interesting story for me to want to at least risk sleep on a Sunday night just to see what happens. But then I still, is it really worth it? No. I should have just went to bed and just played it today instead or something like that. But here we are. So.
Well, did it have a good ending though?
Well, no, that's the thing. It's even after 2 hours of playing it, I would look online. Oh no, I haven't.
Oh, you played it for 2 hours and you didn't. And you didn't. Oh wow.
No, there's a true ending that I need to go and do now. Like, oh my god, really?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not done yet, and I'm just debating when I'm going to go do that, or and this is where you get to a point where do I want to watch it on YouTube and just not care, or do I just want to play the game? I don't know yet. I'm just deciding what I want to do, because Yeah, you and I talked about this too a little bit offline, but I've gotten to a point now where I've mastered all the weapons. I know what to do. Nothing's that hard anymore. And I actually said it to this is me being a trophy miser because I thought I was gonna get rewarded by playing the game on the hardest difficulty that it presents itself with. No, there's no difficulty reward for beating the game on hard setting, and I had it on hard setting. So that was a little bit of a disappointment too. Like, really? I just beat the bad guy, a couple times over and over again, getting so close and finally beating it, only to find out, oh no, you don't have to worry about a trophy. There's no trophy for this. So my whole greed even got the best of me last night for chasing trophies. It was such a waste in that way. I should just set the game on casual and just beat it in like 5 hours, 10 hours instead of. I think I've sunk in a total with all the repeats and load screens I have to sit through because I'm playing on the PS4, not the PS5, so I don't have the faster processor. I've booked in about 80 hours into this game,
Wow.
and it's not, like when you play a Final Fantasy game and you feel like, okay, it's 80 hours, or a Dragon Warrior game or a Dragon Quest game,
Yeah.
right? Same thing. Like you feel like you got kind of something out of it for playing it for that long. I didn't get that with this game. with this game.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, my memory of Dragon Quest XI is it took me a little over 100 hours to complete it,
Yeah.
and that was doing
Uh-huh.
everything: the
Yeah.
false ending, the true ending, getting all the characters, doing all the side quests.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But like that's just this world-spanning epic, and it just seems to me that the God of War Ragnarok and the first one aren't you just basically walking down hallways for the whole time? Like they're just curated corridors, right?
Um,
there's
they
no real
really do.
exploration. There's no like expanding world. You don't go back to the previous. Once you've completed a chapter, you never revisit that area again, right? Or
No,
is there an expanding world?
they do. I mean, to give credit to this reboot from 2018, I played the first three myself. I beat the first two,
Hmm.
and they're very. I hate for lack of a better description. They're very video gamey. You go down a
Yeah,
corridor, you do
right.
everything, you're done.
But they're also
This
only
one,
like 10 hours long, right? So
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like it's the perfect
yeah,
length for what it is.
yeah. In God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, they give you realms like Vanaheim, Alfheim. I can't remember even half the names of some of these, but
Yeah.
they give you all these realms. You can go in there, and then they turn into. It's sort of I hate this term. This is again another conversation, but they Metroidvania it. So you can only do certain things in each realm.
Hmm.
Once you get a new item, you have to go back to those realms, and you can unlock more levels. And
Okay.
then
Well, that's
if
broader than I thought it was.
yeah, they've actually added a lot of there's a lot of levels to the gameplay itself that's fun. It's worth if you play it for purely video game sake and you try to get past some of the arguable superficial, subjective issues with the game, such as it's over the head, 3/4 view for the game. The camera's really up close. So for me,
Yeah.
I'm used to I think the perfect game for a over the head type of game is like Mass Effect, for example. I think the spacing of the camera behind the character was just about right.
Hmm.
Whereas God of War, they put you almost feel like you're sitting on.
Because they want to make it more cinematic, and then
Exactly,
the camera is,
exactly.
is always like handheld. It's always shaky cam
Yes,
because they
yes,
somehow make that it makes it more cinematic. I think is
yeah, yeah,
why
and
they
that's
do it
where
that
it
way.
gets. I totally understand artistically why they did that, but from a gameplay standpoint, it gets frustrating. But then you learn how to play around it, and it's not as bad, but it still feels clunky. Like whereas the first three games, I never felt clunky in those games. Like you felt
No.
like Kratos could just run around and dominate the whole arena or corridor easily.
Yeah.
In this one, in these last two, you definitely have to think about the space that you're not even seeing, and you're trying to rely on cues on the corners of your screen to tell you
Right.
if
You're
something's
playing
coming
the
at you.
UI at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, you are a little bit. And also then you're listening to audio cues, which is kind of cool too, because you're listening to your partner say, watch out behind you, to your left, to your right, and you actually pay attention and it'll actually work. So those aspects are kind of fun. It makes the game fun. Um, but man, like I said, I sunk in 80 hours, and it's all my fault because I set on harder settings. So I kept dying on certain characters over and over again. I didn't need to. Again, I could have set on casual and beat the game. But then, do I get the same amount of fun out of it? I don't know. Like your little synapses go off for this stuff. I'm seeing a glutton for punishment for this
I mean,
type
you
of stuff.
definitely are a glutton for punishment. I mean, you know
Yeah,
me. I mean, give me.
I
I mean,
know.
I am looking for an excuse to pull the ripcord. Like I dare you to play. To get me to play all the whole way through a game. Like I've got so
Yeah,
much stuff to do. I could read a book. I could go watch an
yeah,
episode of
I know.
Voyager. I could listen to a podcast.
Yep.
I could go to the
I,
theater and perform. I could,
I,
you know,
yeah.
my dance card can be full whenever I want it to be. So the way I play video games anymore is like give me a reason to leave. I am looking for a reason to stop playing this game.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I pull the ripcord very fast in video games these days.
yeah, and that's one of the traits I wish I had more of. I mean, I will do it for certain games. I will. I really will. I promise I do. But
Uh-huh.
it
I'll
doesn't
believe
feel,
it
it
when I
doesn't.
see it.
Yeah, but no, I didn't do it this time for God of War Ragnarok. But overall, I mean, gameplay wise, it's great.
Mhm.
They had a good formula in in 2018 it was a reboot. I thought it was fine. It's just different than the original God of
Right.
War is all.
I
It's
mean
just a
it's
different type of
other
game,
than the
you know.
other than the character Kratos, it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the original series.
They do this weird throwback to like when you're looting chests and stuff like that. It
You still
feels
have to
just like the
mash the
first.
button to open it
Yes,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
You mash them. You mash them, but it's only one button press. But they do little kind of throwbacks to the old games in that way, which is kind of cool. But one of the weapons is the dual blades. That's his main weapons in the first three.
Yeah.
There and this one, so there's that. But yeah, other than that, um, yeah, it is a different kind of game. You have to kind of, if you're in the mood to play a third person fighting style arcadey kind of game, it's great. It'll do the job for you. But if you're in it for the narrative aspect, in my opinion, 2018's God of War was great all the way through. Like it was a fun story. It's just right length, everything. And Ragnarok, it just they really do a really good. They do a great job in trying to establish the Nordic. I think it's Nordic, the Nordic mythology of what Kratos and his son are exploring, and that's a take on the whole world, and that's fun. I feel like I got a little bit of an education playing the game and reading some of the lore. Go, oh,
Mhm.
this is how they perceive Odin or Thor, and that was kind of fun for pop culture purposes. Will I ever use it again? No, but for the game, for that mythology, it's fun. Very similar to like when you play Mario, you know about the Mushroom Kingdom only because you play the game and you learn about Goombas and you learn the verbiage. Well, I think they were kind of they were pretty much doing the same thing with the God of War 2018 and this one. But the only thing is are they going to make more? I don't know. And what can they really do now? I don't know. I'm trying not to avoid any spoilers, um, but yeah, I think I'm kind of done with the series for now until there's some compelling reason for me to want to come back to it. But I don't see it. Um, but I do recommend if you can get on sale and you want something kind of arcadey and fun, and you just
Yeah.
set on a low setting, it's actually not a bad game. They're both great. You're not gonna waste time with them, but you will ask questions about the story, especially in the most latest one. I'm very curious, like how far. Like I don't know if it was up for any awards or anything like that. I just don't know if
Probably.
it.
I mean, I don't follow any of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't either anymore. So, but overall, good game. Santa Monica Studios should be proud of it. It's a really good game. Um, just a little bit too long for me these days. So, um, that's it. I just want to show you something here. I'm doing
Okay.
dental work on the Warhog, so I'll finish. I'll clean that up. But that was his teeth. I'll take that off. But yeah, I got the basic pose of a
Nice.
Warhog here. So I'll do some animation, and I'll work on the
Right.
animation for Warhog maybe next week. I think this is a good place to stop while I work on some dental work. I'll do the dental work, and then I'll get that ready, and then we'll do a little bit of animation. This will only be a two framer. If you can even see underneath, it's just a sketch going up and down.
Mhm.
I just kind of, and I might do one more extra pose in there, or one extra frame to kind of smooth it out. But yeah, we got something going on, so it's on its way.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that seemed like a good stopping point. So we'll wrap it up. You can head over to calamitygene.rocks, and that'll take you to our Patreon site. I can recommend or ask that you consider subscribing and helping us make this cartoon a reality. We're going to do it either way, but if we have a little bit of cash, we can make it happen even faster. We also are on Facebook, which is where we basically post all of our updates about the stream and what's going on in the world of Calamity Jane. And we also have a Twitter account, at Jane Salamander, where we do a 3-tweet story every week. This week is just some basic observational stuff, just some silly thoughts in Calamity's head. So, it's fun. We love kind of giving you an insight into what the character is doing. Otherwise, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. So stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.